So I qualified in 2009, so it'll be 11 years in July, I think.
You don't look old enough to have 17 years of solicitor training under your belt.
Thank you.
That's the only compliment in this podcast, by the way.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get it out of the way.
All right,
early
okay,
doors.
I'll enjoy it, yeah.
Morning, Emily.
Good morning, Rob.
Thank you for joining me this morning. So the theme of this podcast really is to discuss meeting the experts. So you're a lawyer, a solicitor, working here at Florence House. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask you really is why you got into law. What made you want to become a solicitor? I'm sure it wasn't a childhood dream, so it'd be nice to explore that a little bit.
Okay, so I always actually wanted to be a vet. That was my ambition probably up until the age of about 12. And then my grandmother bought me a day with the vet experience at an auction of promises, and I discovered I was queasy. So that was decided that wasn't the right career move for me. And then it was a case of, well, what do you think about being a lawyer? Watching sort of courtroom dramas on TV, you know, that could be you, the big barrister, the big shot, courtroom lawyer or whatever. So it sort of came from that really, and I just did a series of work experience over sort of in the school holidays, and decided that the legal profession was the right way for me to go. Obviously not the courtroom side of things, but definitely the legal profession. So it came from that really. So I suppose a little bit of encouragement from family more than anything.
So after you did the work experience, which I think is a really good idea actually, so we've had a couple of people over the years do work experience with us, and I think it gives you a good tester and a good sort of taste of what a profession's like, isn't it?
Definitely.
So you've done the work experience. How did you then take it to the next level, and sort of from a law degree then, what was the next steps in your career?
So the degree is a 3-year degree, and then from there you go on to law school, which I did at Christleton University of Law, just outside Chester, and then you do a 2-year training contract. So again, going back to the work experience point, I was offered my training contract from doing work experience with a firm over the summer. So in total, you're training essentially for 6 years, because you've got your 3-year degree, your year at law school, and then 2 years training, and then you're fully qualified. So the training contract is essentially, you have to have a mixed bag of experience. So you have to do, I think it's 4 different seats in 4 different areas of law. So you've got to do the contentious, so the courtroom type stuff, as well as the non-contentious, so the more, what I would say, the more gentle sides of the law, the more sides of the law that I do now. So that's basically the path into becoming a lawyer.
So 6 years of essentially training then to be a solicitor. Yeah. How long have you been a qualified solicitor for then?
So I qualified in 2009, so it'll be 11 years in July, I think. Yeah, feels...
You don't look old enough to have 17 years of solicitor training under your belt.
Thank you.
That's the only compliment in this podcast, by the way.
Thanks,
Okay.
yeah.
Get
Okay,
out
all right, okay, I'll enjoy it, yeah.
So you've been a solicitor now for a number of years, qualified in 2009. I suppose the key question is, what parts of law do you like then? So you alluded to it slightly then, that you're not really into the contentious side of law, which I completely get. I think being in a courtroom, the thought of it can be quite intimidating. Touch wood, I've only ever been on the side of witnessing a court case going on, but I can imagine it being quite an intimidating environment to be in. So what do you specialise in, and why?
So I suppose the areas of law that I've always enjoyed have been sort of what I would call the private client side. So wills, trusts, lasting power of attorney, assisting families where a loved one has passed away, so obtaining probate in that sort of situation. So that's what I really love. And I suppose in terms of making wills, it appeals to me because it's like a problem to be solved, because people come to me with their objectives, whether it's inheritance tax planning, whether it's care fee planning, or whatever it might be, and it's finding the right will to solve that particular client's problem. So I quite like it for that reason. I think that's...
No, it's a good answer. On that point then, wills, people who might be watching our podcast will be sitting there going, well, actually you can make your own will, which technically you can, and I know we've done a lot of presentations together where we actually say you can go to the likes of WH Smith and get a will pack and write your own will. Tell me some of the benefits that you think exist in seeing a professional such as yourself to do a will versus doing it yourself.
Okay, so I mean, having a will is better than not having a will at all. So something is better than nothing, I guess. But I think if you're just going out and either making it yourself or doing it online, you're missing out on some really valuable advice. So a will is often the starting point, or the starting point of the conversation about protecting your wealth for your family, whether it be from inheritance tax, whether it be that you're concerned that you might go into care at a later stage, whether you're concerned that you might pass on your wealth to your spouse and then they subsequently remarry, and it means that your children miss out on their inheritance in that sort of situation.
Which we've both seen.
Absolutely. So really, it's seeing a professional isn't just about making a will and putting your wishes onto paper. It's about, you know, what else a will can do for you. And I think quite a lot of my clients are surprised at what the will can do, and they've often said to me, I didn't even realise that my will can do that. And I think if you're not going to see a professional, then you're not getting that advice and that information. Yeah. And I suppose finally, it's very important that a will is done properly in terms of the way that it's been not only drafted but the way you sign it. So it's got to be signed and dated in the presence of two witnesses, and often that can be something, if you've done it yourself, you might miss out on, you know, signing it properly, which means it's not valid. So you've still got an issue at that point.
So it's an important document, and it's an important document to keep updated, isn't it?
Yes.
So what do you think are some of the trigger points that people at home might be thinking, well, this has happened, do I need to update my will? So just some handy trigger points that you think are useful to remember.
I mean, I usually recommend to clients that they should be reviewing their will every 5 years, and that seems probably like it's not an awful long period of time, but quite a lot can happen in that 5-year period. But the sort of triggers that you might want to be looking out for, if you've just got married, that will revoke a will, so you should be looking at making sure that you've got a new will in place. Perhaps if you've moved in with somebody, so cohabitees, if you're just living with someone and you're not married and don't have the same legal rights as married couples. So if you just moved in with someone, you might want to make sure that you're protected, that each other is protected. Maybe if you've had new additions to the family, so if you've just had children, you know, who would you like to be a guardian of that child? That can often be quite an important trigger for making a will. It's not necessarily, you know, making sure that your estate is dealt with in a certain way, but it's making sure that there's somebody there that's been properly appointed to look after your child. Maybe you've had more grandchildren. If your wealth increases, suddenly you have a change in circumstances, you've suddenly inherited some money or you've come into some money, then obviously be mindful of what inheritance tax thresholds there are, and making sure that your will is efficient, really. I
mean, that's just, there's quite a few points there already. I suppose it's quite clear that it's not a static document. It's not something that you write once, put it in the cupboard and forget about it. It's something that you need to review. And I think that's where the value of your advice is, because circumstances do change. You've got someone to act as a sounding board a lot of the time, because, you know, clearly we've got mutual clients where we've worked together, and I've seen some of the value that you've added from just actually sitting down and giving your opinion. You know, whether that translates into a document or a legal service is sometimes irrelevant. The fact that they've had the opportunity to chat to you is what matters.
It's information, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right in saying that you offer all new clients a free initial meeting so you can see how you can help them?
Yes. Every client is offered that no obligation meeting, and during that meeting, really, it's a case of making sure that I can help. And that I'm right for the client, so sort of right for each other, which I think is quite important, because I think, you know, it is a very personal service, a very personal document, so it's an opportunity for the client to get to know me as well. And during that meeting, we'll identify the client's objectives, so what is it that's perhaps concerning them, or what are they, you know, motivated into making a will, what's brought them here. Sometimes clients don't know what their objectives are and they need sort of helping to identify what they are, and then we'll look at what the solutions are to for them, and then finally letting them know what it's likely to cost, because that can be quite a scary factor into any legal advice, really, is how much is this going to cost me.
Yeah, because there's that common misconception a lot of time when you go to see a solicitor or a lawyer: how much is this going to cost me? The clock's already ticking as soon as I walk in the door. It's not quite like that anymore, is it?
No, and I'd like to think that you're walking into a safe environment. You're here to gather some information and to find out how much it's going to cost you, so that you're not walking in with a blank cheque, essentially. So it is a safe environment to find out what you need, and I'm quite it's one of the things I feel quite strongly about, that people should have access to legal services without that barrier. So that's why I offer that meeting for anybody, whether it's coming in to make a will, lasting power of attorney, or whether someone's passed away, if you're moving house. It's always offered to clients.
Which is good. And do you operate a fixed fee as well? Can you offer a client a fixed fee to do an item of work, so they essentially know what it's going to cost them?
Yes. So most of my services are on a fixed fee basis. And even where I operate on a time basis, if I think that actually that's going to work out better for the client, you're always given an upfront estimate of what that cost's going to be. But certainly, wills, lasting power of attorney, it's always a fixed fee. Always very transparent about that.
Great. This is going to be a tough question for you then, potentially.
Okay.
There's lots of solicitors and there's lots of styles of solicitors. I mean, locally in Mould and in Flintshire, there's a lot of different firms out there. Yeah. I think how you deal with clients and your proposition is very unique. I would say that, being that we work together with a number of clients. But what do you think makes Celtic law different to everyone else? What do you think is your USP?
Okay, so I think it's very much down to the person delivering the service, and as I've touched upon, the areas of law that I practice in, it is a very personal, a very personal thing to make a will, or when someone's passed away. So I think I hesitate to say that my USP is me, but it is just me at Celtic Law. It's me that's delivering the service, and I'd like to think that. Whilst Celtic Law as a firm is forward-thinking, I use the latest technology, which makes me very agile in terms of how I work. So I can work from a client's home, I can work from my home, I can work from the office, I can work from wherever. But I'd like to think that despite that modern approach to delivering the service, I am a traditional solicitor. So I'm the solicitor that hopefully people keep coming back to, and that they bring generations of their family back to me because they trust me. So I think that's why I'd like to think I'm different.
I think there's good points. I think you've also touched on another key point, which is actually longevity. So compared to some of your peers, you're a younger solicitor, obviously clearly very experienced, and you've done the training, you've seen and done a lot of different things, but you are a younger solicitor, so that does give families reassurance that actually if you act for them today, then touch wood, in 20 years time you're still there to act for them, which I think is important. It's something I touch on with my clients, to be honest, to say I'm not an employed advisor that's going to be gone tomorrow. It's your firm as it is at my firm, so you've got that connection, it's your reputation, so nothing's a quick book is what I'm trying to say. Which I'm sure you'll agree with. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, quite recently I've had clients come in to see me. They've made wills with me, and then they've subsequently brought their children in to introduce me to them, so that they know who I am, where they're going to come to when the time comes. And I'd like to think that's given them some comfort, that they know they'll be looked after, which I think is quite nice.
And I'm sure it takes a bit of weight off those families as well, knowing that there's a port of call that the family can go to if they've got any legal needs.
Yeah, I hope so.
Excellent. So another thing I wanted to touch on then, so Celtic Law is clearly one of the key pillars of Celtic Connects, which sits ourselves, Celtic Financial, and Craig from Celtic Accountancy. How do you think that relationship benefits you and your clients, do you think? Because I've seen the direct benefits working with you, having the opportunity where clients haven't got a will or haven't got a power of attorney. That's not my specialism. I'm not authorised to give advice on wills and power of attorneys. So it's good to be able to bring you in on those situations. How have you found it a benefit, do you think?
Okay, so I think you've already touched upon something where we're in the same building. So if I've got a quick question I need to ask on behalf of a client, and I need to ask either yourself or Craig, we can just bring you in, give your opinion or your thoughts on a certain scenario. And I've always been very keen to have all the professionals around one table, so to speak. So I think that's really beneficial. And for me, it means that there is no stone unturned for that client. So just going back to making a will, for example, that's probably one of the key examples for me, where I'm looking at what somebody's got in their estate. I can talk to the client about, okay, how can we make this will the most tax efficient or care fee planning efficient? But there are solutions that you know about that I can't deal with, or that I don't know about, that can benefit that client in terms of how they plan their estate. So quite often making a will is more than just putting it down on paper. It's looking at what else you could be doing with your assets to maximise what I'm trying to do, really. So I think for me it's that thorough approach that there's no stone unturned, there's no obligation for the client, because like me, you offer that no obligation chat, so there's no pressure for the client to take out your services. So I think that's quite nice. Again, it's that safe environment just to gather information and get the best possible solution for that client, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, something I always stress, it's not an exclusive relationship, is it?
No.
You work with different financial advisors, different solicitors and accountants, as do we. It's just like you said, it's handy because we're working in the same building, sharing the cost of having a building where we work from, but also to knock on the door and go, Emily, I've got this client, what do you think's a good situation here, or would you do anything differently? So it's those free minds which I think's the key part of the partnership, isn't it? Great. Thinking forward then, so we've explored where you've come from, what you do, what you like doing. Where do you think Celtic Law is going in the future? Because I hear there's some rumours that you've got a new website coming, which sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
So beyond the website, any other plans for Celtic Law?
So hopefully this year, the plans are sort of growth and sort of building on what I've already achieved and done. So you've mentioned the website. So I've got a company in Chester called Actuate that are working on the website for me. So that's very exciting. So that's been sort of one step towards that. I'm also hoping that I might have some support staff coming. So I'm looking into doing that. So having somebody that can do the administrative work will be quite a big step forward. And who knows, I think it's one step at a time, really, in terms of growth, and whether there's possibilities for another solicitor to join me. I can't see that happening maybe in the next 12 months, but certainly in future I would hope that there would be other solicitors flying the flag of Celtic Law as well in future.
I think that's it for now. Thank you for taking the time to come and answer some questions today. Hopefully it's given people a bit more insight about who you are and what you do and where you've come from, which I think is really important. I think a couple of key points for me is that law is not static, especially when it comes to wills, trusts and power of attorneys. Make sure that you're looking at those trigger points to see a solicitor and keep things up to date. And clearly the USB, I think, is you. I think you're quite right. You're very personal. The clients have great feedback. And the fact that you give the opportunity to sit down and see people and see how you can help, I think it's just a great service and something that I know that the community takes advantage of, so it's good to have.